everybody. How inspiring is this? Hard not to be inspired around Tim Haid. And I love the sandbox analogy. I'm gonna belabor it during this presentation. So what I'm talking to you about is what the city is doing to participate in the sandbox. Some of the ways that we are trying to tackle this resilience issue through our city programs and particularly through our city-only CCA. So this is our Santa Barbara story. Our city council adopted a carbon neutrality goal by 2035 and 2020. And in the time horizon of carbon sequestration and emissions, that is tomorrow. So we are at a full sprint to try and accomplish this. That led us to found Santa Barbara Clean Energy, which is our city-only CCA. This is a fairly uncommon model where a city goes it alone. And the impetus behind that was that we really wanted to play in the sandbox. We didn't want to watch. We wanted to play and play hard, and that's what we're doing. So that also gives us a unique ability to control our supply side. We supply the city of Santa Barbara businesses and residents with their electricity, and we have defaulted to carbon free. So that gave us a pathway to carbon neutrality by basically electrifying everything. But as Craig mentioned, we are in a vulnerable position on the grid, and we have to be cognizant of that, right? How are we preparing our communities, but also not overwhelming them with cost burden? We've got a couple problem statements we're addressing. One, electrical cost increases. Electric rates have skyrocketed for both businesses, residents, and supply side over the last few years. This graph shows the 4 major investor-owned utilities and how that's increased, or the 3 major electrical ones. And it's substantial, right? And this is related to a myriad of things: wildfire investments, solar cost shift, programming, legislative actions. On the supply side, which is the world I work in every day, we've also had major cost increases. The state's required resource adequacy, which is essentially an insurance policy against grid outages. This has created major volatility in the state. Additionally, renewables, which we have defaulted to, are more expensive. More states have renewable portfolio standards, which creates a constrained market, and we have to deal with that, right? We still want to provide this clean, better energy, but there are cost implications with that. So how do we address that? And of course, we've talked about load management. We have that vulnerable grid. We have this duck. Probably a lot of you are familiar with the duck curve in California, where during the middle of the day, we have surplus energy that we actually pay other states to take from us. And then we have this incredible ramp up, which is really challenging, particularly from a distribution and transmission perspective, to supply. So how do we address these things through local programming? We've got some options, right? And the things we're looking at as a CCA that's hyper-focused on our local community is things like solar plus storage, giving the people back control of their energy costs. You become your own little power plant, and you can choose when you're taking power from the grid. Grid services, this is things like smart thermostats, vehicle to grid opportunities, other ways that people can load shift throughout the day and control their costs, but also minimize grid issues. And then load modification. As a community choice aggregation entity, we really look at when we're supplying power and how we can then control costs there and reduce rates. So harnessing all of these things like solar plus storage and smart technologies to load shift and reduce costs and grid strain. So we've tried a few things. I tell my staff almost daily, it's okay to fail, but fail fast and pivot. So we've had one. Failure is a strong word, but a failed experiment, if you will. We had a local turnkey solar plus storage program that would install solar and storage facilities on local area residences. It was initially geared towards low income, which was the real appeal to Santa Barbara, because as we all know in this room, resilience hits the unfortunate first. So we're trying to prepare those the most. And so we had the electric program. This would install solar plus storage. It would be through a power purchase agreement, and it was less than the utility costs. There were a couple barriers. One, a lot of low-income homeowners needed a new roof, and this couldn't factor into the payback period of the PPA, and this was a real challenge and hurdle. There were also a lot of low-income customers don't own their home. And so how do we make sure we're serving them, right? These were big barriers to like our principal reason for doing this program. There were, of course, legislative issues that I don't have up here. We had the NEM 3, we colloquially call it, or net billing tariff, which has dramatically changed value proposition of solar, and some additional legislative issues that are happening that really put constraints on our local solar market that we hope to help rectify. And ultimately, the program ended up in bankruptcy, which is a real shame. But it's a good news story because we learned a lot from this process and we learned what things we wanted to do differently. Additionally, our CCA has started offering its own programs, including heat pump incentive programs, electric vehicle incentive programs. This is all great. It gets us on our journey to carbon neutrality, but even better, these things can be leveraged to help with those initial problem statements I talked about. Control costs, build resiliency, help the grid. So how do we then leverage these moving forward? Where we're going, so we're taking those lessons learned from the electric program and we're issuing an RFP. It won't be solar plus storage, that's not the RFP. It'll be, you tell us how we help control costs for our customers, how we help control costs for our supply side, and how we help local resiliency. You guys have the ideas, right? Really excited about that RFP, it's coming out soon. More programs. How do we get more of these smart technologies into homes to help people build this resiliency for themselves? And of course, education. One of our biggest hurdles to implementing these smart technologies, particularly heat pump water heaters and air source heat pumps, people don't know about them, including the installers, and they aren't comfortable with them. So we're doing a lot of work around building that comfort level and education. So with that, my one question to you all as we move into breakout groups after this session is, how do you want to help us? Thank you.